Yes.
Minister, Minister, I'm going to ask you, are you willing to have all questions posed at once and then you answer, or are you going to take them one at a time? No, you have to tell me no because I'm going to rule. One at a time. Are you going to answer the member from St. Andrew Eastern, sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I only have to answer one question out of two, and that's a question that relates to the JPS negotiation. And he asked me, I'm confident that the 150 can do what it is said to do in the 2 months, and the answer is yes. Secondly, he asked about whether or not I'm confident of the additional money, and I will make a statement here to say we will work with JPS in whichever way, shape, or form that is required, if it means that we are to benefit the people of Jamaica in the shortest possible time. All options are open for discussion. All options. But we are not going to wait to get a fulsome, complete in a time of crisis. 150 is what we need for 2 months to get January morning, February morning, restoration as against May, June. If anybody can question that in Jamaica today with what we are going through, then they are wicked people.
Member from Clarendon Southwestern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the minister aware that one of the major partners of the current JPS setup has indicated that they want to withdraw from the JPS agreement, the current agreement that they have, right? One of the international partners. And having regard to that fact, is the minister still prepared to go ahead with this loan of 150 million US, having regard to the fact that one of the partners of JPS has indicated that they want to withdraw from the agreement? It's an important question.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, it is a matter, Babsy. Mr. Speaker, it is a matter of public international knowledge that Maribweni, who owns 40%, indicated months ago that they are 40%.
Obviously, they are not listening, Minister. Give them some time. Go ahead now.
It's a matter of public record, international record, that Maribweni took a decision to divest their 40% in JPS. They came and saw the government of Jamaica and expressed that. This also, when the letter of the government in terms of the position that we took with the license, they came back to us to indicate that based on that, nobody would be prepared to buy 40% of a company that have 2 years on a license. So we are on the same path in relation to going down the road to get a negotiated license one way or the other so that they can then do what they need to do. But as of right now, they are in it for the next 2 years because they don't have any ability to sell. So that has no inference or nothing to do with what we are planning to do now. So answer to his question, yes, long time.
Can we? House leader. House leader.
Minister Grange. Mr. Speaker, we have another statement by Mr. Speaker, we have a statement by the Minister of Culture, Gender and Sports, Minister Grange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But I didn't get a chance.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
My mic has been on multiple times.
You can't vote me on our please.
90% of my constituency is without light.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Minister, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir. Today, honorable members, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, Jamaica joins the global community to observe the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
Violence before the war. Women and men.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sober reminder of the women and girls and men whose lives are shaped, sometimes permanently, by violence, fear, and silence. The data is clearer than ever, Mr. Speaker. The Women's Health Survey shows that 1 in 4 Jamaican women has been physically abused by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 has experienced sexual violence. These are not distant numbers. They represent women in our constituencies, or workplaces, or schools, or public spaces, and in our homes. Globally, the World Health Organization mirrors these realities. 1 in 3 women will face physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. Mr. Speaker, these are not statistics we can gloss over. They represent trauma that lasts for years, if not a lifetime. They speak to the weight many women carry quietly, and some men. Fear, anxiety, shame, and in too many cases, silence. This year's international theme, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls, brings focus to an area often overlooked. In a world where our youth and young women live, learn, worship, and socialize online, they also encounter cyberbullying, harassment, stalking, and the non-consensual sharing of intimate images. These attacks happen through screens, but the damage is deeply real, leading to depression, isolation, and in some cases, tragedy. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, through the Bureau of Gender Affairs, continues to strengthen national support systems. We have expanded the 24-hour, 7 days per week gender-based violence helpline, and we have helplines for both men and women. We have broadened the network of trained community responders. We have strengthened our collaboration with the Jamaica Constabulary Force and our social service agencies. We have operationalized regional shelters for women and their families who are supported through rescue, recovery, and reintegration in 2 major regions under the coordination of a national shelter unit in the Bureau of Gender Affairs. Mr. Speaker, these efforts form part of the implementation of the National Strategic Action Plan to eliminate gender-based violence in Jamaica and the National Policy for Gender Equality, which serve to guide the work we do every day. But laws and policies, Mr. Speaker, alone are not enough. What we need and what this moment demands is a Jamaica that refuses to look away, refuses to excuse abuse, refuses to normalize violence in any form. Our women and our girls deserve to live without fear, without intimidation, without harassment online or offline. And so today, from this honorable house, I say clearly, break the silence, end the violence. If you know something, don't look away. Don't be silent. Because if you are silent, someone could die. And then I know you'd be living with it on your conscience. Let us encourage families, schools, and workplaces, communities, and institutions to speak honestly about what so many women and girls and some of our men endure. A country cannot heal what it continues to hide. Breaking silence is not about shaming. It is about protecting, it is about supporting and creating space for justice. Mr. Speaker, I also want to acknowledge the NGOs, the non-government organizations, the community-based groups, the women's organizations, the men's organizations, civil society organizations, and numerous gender advocates who continue to support survivors and push this country forward. Their work is often quiet, but remains vital. To survivors listening today, and there are many out there, whether here or across Jamaica, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. The Joint Select Committee on the Review of the Domestic Violence Act will be reestablished within a couple of weeks, and the sitting will begin soon after. The Bicameral Women's Caucus, which was established here in Parliament, will resume its meetings in another couple of weeks. So as we observe Idiwar, may this Parliament recommit itself to building a Jamaica where every woman, every girl, every boy can walk freely, can speak freely, can work freely, can learn freely, and live fully without fear of abuse. Let us continue to work to break the silence and end the violence as we continue the outreach among the numerous women and men and their families who are grappling with the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa. The women and girls of Jamaica and our boys deserve nothing less. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member from St. Andrew Southwestern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No. Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my own words as we indeed commemorate this International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which we popularly call IDVOR, and begin 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Minister, the stats that you have outlined here, those are clear. And we have been talking about that for oh so long, that indeed 1 in 4 Jamaican women has been physically abused by an intimate partner. And the truth is that a lot of those who are being abused sometimes don't even come forward to report it. Although what we do know is that they do talk to friends and family. And so that opens an avenue for action, which is to ensure that friends and families give support to these women and girls so that we can indeed end this kind of practice that we see. This year, we are celebrating our theme, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. And it is true that this area has been long overlooked, except that during COVID, we did acknowledge and we saw the increase of violence against women online. And since then, we have been paying some attention to it, and I'm glad that this year is being used to further highlight that. As we do that, I am also looking that in Jamaica, especially as we look to build better and deal with the effects post Hurricane Melissa, that we have to use this period to ensure that we Jamaicanize it. I've always said that when we do these campaigns, I like when we make it our own. And us in Jamaica, as we look at what is happening to our communities, especially those that have been worse affected, we have to remember the disproportionate effects of gender-based violence on vulnerable populations, especially women and girls. And so, as we take steps to recover, I want to urge us to prioritize the safety and well-being of our women and girls, especially as we ensure that they have safe spaces to bathe and to relieve themselves. Let's also be mindful of the probability of Jamaicans in these affected areas falling into those that are economically disadvantaged, those that face access, education and resources. And you would know, Minister, that I mentioned these particular areas because these are some of the circumstances under which we see an increase in gender-based violence against women and girls. And so as we look at what we're doing, we have to remember that this whole situation creates opportunities, yes, for our women and girls to be disadvantaged. And so we have to take that into account. And I'm therefore asking that whatever we do in this recovery period, that we ensure that our systems, our mechanisms, and our structures prioritize transparency, equity, and inclusion, so that all of us who are part of government, all of us elected by the people, as members of parliament, as councillors, those of us in communities who have always played a part, yes, those of us in our schools, that we all have that space to come together, look generally at what is happening, and support each other to make sure that there is transparency there's equity, and there's inclusion. Minister, as we go forward, I'm hoping also that we use this year.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm asking that the member be offered an additional 5 minutes to complete her presentation.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. I was saying that I believe that we should use this year to ensure that we close the gap. We have done a lot of things, but we must still use this year to close the gap of those pieces of legislation that still require our attention. You're aware of some of those, Minister, where we need to review and make the necessary amendments to ensure that we are where we should be. In Parliament, I would like to ask us to commit to lead by example. By example in our relationships, in what we do, in how we treat others, and by condemning all those times and all those forms of gender-based violence that we see, whether they are perpetrated by one of us or a man on the street. I also want, because of that experience, to ask that as we look to review the standing orders, that we take the opportunity to make a change and to show that we are willing to do more than pay lip service. But that indeed, in our standing orders, we set the standards that hold all of us accountable. Again, I stand to reaffirm our commitment to cause and take tangible action to make the difference. As we always say, break the silence, end the violence, and we too in this Parliament must do our part. Thank you.
Member from West Central, St. James.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I thank the Minister for this statement on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the 16th Day of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. Permit me to pose two questions to the Minister. Increasingly, data show that online bullying, harassment, stalking, and other forms of attacks include defamatory statements. Will the Minister consider reintroducing into Jamaican statute law criminal libel in this age of unregulated social media as one of the tools of protection? Secondly, my second question, Minister, is whether any of the regional shelters that was operationalized for women and their families have been damaged as a result of the passage of Hurricane Melissa.
House Leader. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to support the Minister in relation to the question asked by the member from St. James, West Central, that legislation is already in place that protects persons from cyberbullying and, in fact, attacks on social media. Criminal liability is in place. And we are currently in the process of starting the review process of the Cybersecurity Act, where we will include matters of this nature to protect citizens, whether male or female, from abuse of social media.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, on a point of clarity. On a point of clarity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the honourable member misheard. It's not about criminal liability, but it's about criminal libel, defamation.
So, Mr. Speaker, in response to the question asked if any of the shelters were affected by Hurricane Melissa, fortunately, our shelters were not damaged. However, the centers, two of our centers in Western Jamaica for our adolescent mothers, the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, two centers were badly damaged. And in fact, a number of our employees were, we could not find them, we could not locate them for days. But we have now found all our employees. We are working to put the shelters, the centers, have them repaired, and to get our program going again. But in the meantime, the students, I don't know if everyone in Parliament is aware of the program of the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, where we have 13 such centers across the island and also outreach centers. And we assist pregnant teenagers and teenage mothers to continue their education and then reintegrate them back into the school system. And in fact, during the hurricane, it was on the news that a mother was delivering a baby. It was a 15-year-old delivering, and that young miss was one of our students. And we have cases where an 11-year-old, for example, victim of incest, her grandfather got her pregnant. So we have some really very sad cases, and then we have situations where a young girl might be just experimenting and gets pregnant. We also have a program for fathers, for the baby fathers, where we, of course, assist them to become good fathers, and a program where we are able to convince these young ladies not to get pregnant a second time until they're in a position to take care of a family. So I would say God has been good to us. Our program has not been severely impacted. I am concerned about the parishes where Melissa impacted and what is happening to the young girls and even men who are homeless. We have a concern, and we're going to be doing some research and a survey to see how it has impacted on those women and girls and boys in those communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.